Dear friends, this is Sunil Jain, Chartered Accountant. As all of us are confined in our homes because of this pandemic, and definitely everybody is missing the regular office, regular professional assignments. But it is heartening to see that professionals have come forward to share their knowledge with other professionals, and it's created a very good example. And we are learning more and more. And this is the time when we sharpen our skills on various issues, because during the profession day to day routine, we hardly get time and we are so much tied up. Every chartered accountant knows this. So, in my effort to contribute something towards this, I have compiled a presentation. I am a keen student on FEMA, and accordingly, I have made a presentation. Today, my topic would be current account transactions and liberalized remittance scheme. If it is liked by the fraternity, I'll definitely put in more presentations on various topics to the extent I have the knowledge. Now, with this, I'll start today's topic, which is current account transactions and liberalized remittance scheme. Now, as we all know, FEMA Act is not very vast. It contains only 49 sections, but then there are regulations and there are rules, and they are partly governed by Government of India and partly by Reserve Bank of India. When it comes to current account transactions, Government of India makes rules regarding current account transactions. And now RBI issues, earlier they used to issue master circulars on various topics. For last couple of years, they have stopped issuing master circulars because according to them, it is better to have a master direction which is updated from time to time. Accordingly, they have issued master directions on liberalized remittance scheme also, and also on current account transactions. The base is the current account transactions rules 2000 year, proclaimed by the central government. Now, the relevant circulars are 7/2015-16. This is master direction on liberalized remittance scheme, and circular number 8, master direction number 8 /2015-16 towards other remittances available for resident Indians. Besides this, there is very important notification number 263 dated 5th March 2013, which deals with overseas direct investment by individuals in wholly owned subsidiaries or joint ventures. Now, in this presentation, I'll take master directions number 7 and master directions number 8. Now, before I go forward, I would like to highlight what the Act says. Now, if we go by, first of all, Section 4 of the Act, which reads, I'll read it, save as otherwise provided in this Act, no person resident in India shall acquire, hold, own, possess, or transfer any foreign exchange, foreign security, or any immovable property outside India. Now, that means the Act defines that nobody has got any permission to deal in foreign exchange, foreign security, or any immovable property outside India unless specifically by general circular or by specific permission permitted under the law. So it is not the other way around that everything is permitted unless prohibited. It is like everything is prohibited unless permitted. Now, here one more important thing is, what is the meaning of resident? Resident definition has been given in section 2, clause V. Now, I'll make it clear that residentship under FEMA is different from residentship under Income Tax Act, and it is different from citizenship. So it is not that every Indian citizen is a resident in India, or for that matter, every foreign citizen cannot be resident in India. The definition is very clear. It says that any person who is residing in India with the intentions of permanently residing here, and he is pursuing some occupation, some the profession here, he will be resident. There are other conditions mentioned in the section. I am not going into those details because then that will become itself a full presentation, because there are debates and counter debates. But in nutshell, any person who leaves India with the intentions of permanently staying abroad is deemed as non-resident, and all other persons who are in India and have spent a specified period of time in the preceding year are resident Indians. So now with that, this is the basic statute I just wanted to make clear, and the circulars I've already mentioned. Now coming to the current account transaction rules. The rules have been divided into three parts: Schedule 1, Schedule 2 and Schedule 3. Schedule 1 speaks of current account transactions which are totally prohibited, for which foreign exchange cannot be withdrawn by any resident Indian. Schedule 2 is current account transactions which are permitted subject to prior permission from the respective ministries. And then Schedule 3, which permits current account transactions and capital account transactions subject to certain limits mentioned therein against each item. I'll take one by one, although most relevant is Schedule 3, because Schedule 1 is general. I'll tell you, everybody would agree that Schedule 1 talks of what? Remittance for purchase of lottery, gambling, proscribed magazines. Now there are stakes allowed abroad in sports also. That is also not allowed. Then there are other games which are played online, which are sheer luck games, where the government says foreign exchange is not available for such speculative purposes. Similarly, there are few telecom companies over the world where the recipient of the call pays for the call charges, which is called callback services. So for these also the payments, the remittance is not allowed. So this is generally broadly a Schedule 1. So it prohibits such type of items. Now coming to Schedule 2, basically there are only very few items in the schedule. One is that cultural tours. There are cultural tours organized by various organizations abroad. They take the film stars and they take other celebrities abroad to conduct various shows. So it says if you require foreign exchange for such purposes, you need to seek the permission from Ministry of Human Resource. And now next is advertisement by PSUs. Now all others can spend on advertisement abroad, but when it comes to PSUs, then they need to seek permission from Ministry of Finance before incurring any advertisement in foreign media. Third is similarly freight paid to foreign vessels by PSUs, whether state government or central government. They need to take the permission of Surface Transport Ministry. Next is hiring charges of transponders by TV channels and by internet service providers abroad. If they want to remit the money, they need to go to the Information Ministry, Information Broadcasting Ministry. Next is remittances for sending prize money. Now we know various sports, there are now a lot of prizes. We have IPL, we have many such, Kabaddi League is also there, and there are foreign participants are also there, and they have the prize money. And there are few bodies who are sponsoring such games abroad where they need to send the sponsorship money. So here the government says only the international, national or state sports bodies are allowed to send the money. And in case of any other organization want to send the money above $1 lakh, they need to seek prior permission from Ministry of Human Resource Development. So this is regarding Schedule 3 broadly. Now we'll come to Schedule 3, which gives the list of all the items permitted, current account transactions, and anything beyond those need a prior permission. Here, in last couple of years, 2 years, they have submerged the two schemes. One was current account transaction rules and second was liberalized remittance scheme. Now the government have subsumed two of them together and they have specified an outer limit for all the transactions specified under Schedule 3. Now, Schedule 3, there are two types of transactions which can be carried out. One are current account transactions and one are capital account transactions. Now, as chartered accountants, we all know what are current account transactions and what are capital account transactions. If I am making an investment abroad, I want to buy shares, I want to invest in mutual funds, I want to buy a property. These are all capital account transactions. If I want to travel abroad, I want to make a gift abroad, I want to incur medical expenses abroad. So all such natures are current account transactions. Now, transactions otherwise prohibited, as we discussed earlier, are no foreign exchange is available for such transactions. Another important point is that for incurring such expenditure under liberalized remittance schemes, can the banks extend the loan facility? The rules clearly say no. Banks not to extend credit facility for remittances under this scheme. Now, what is the limit? Government from time to time had prescribed various limits for liberalized remittance scheme. The current limit is $2.5 lakh per person, per individual. Now, it is not per family. It is available to any individual, whether minor, whether newborn, whether old age, whether senior citizen. So if a member of, say, a family of 4 members, they have the liberty of spending up to $10 lakh per annum. Now, within this limit, they have the options of spending it either on current account transactions or on capital account transactions. Now, coming to what are the various limits. Now, I'll take you through the purposes for which current account transactions generally are carried out. This is our tours and travels abroad, gifts or donations abroad, going abroad from employment, for immigration. Now, in case of immigration, we need to send immigration fee. We need to send some, in case there is a permit or there is visa to be taken abroad, or some PR is to be taken abroad, there may be some fee required. But in this case, they have said that if this fee or this license fee or this permit or this visa goes beyond $250,000, you can spend even more than that. But in case immigration rules of the respective country or the country in which you want to migrate wants you to make an investment in their government bonds or investment in a particular manner or particular composition, for that you need to work out within 2,50,000. You cannot get extra foreign exchange for that. Next is maintenance of close relatives abroad. People have to send money to their children who are studying abroad for their education fee. So you can, there may be some parents who are settled abroad and the children want to send the money for their maintenance. That is all within this 2,50,000 limit. Now, besides that, study abroad, visa fee abroad, and then medical expenses. They say medical expenses are allowed for the person who is ill, including his accompanying relative or accompanying attendant. But if the medical bill of the hospital exceeds 2,50,000 rupees, then that liberty has been given to spend more, because government wants that nobody should suffer for want of foreign exchange only because the cost of the hospital abroad is more than this limit. But this limit cannot be utilized for attendant, for your other expenditures. It is for medical expenses at the hospital. Similarly, in case of education, students are going abroad. As we know, lakhs of students go abroad every year and they spend lakhs of rupees. Again, whether the limit of 2,50,000 is totally it cannot be breached. No, it can be provided you have got an estimate from the foreign university, authenticity of which you need to establish, and you can withdraw the foreign exchange even beyond 2,50,000. So these are various current account transactions. You want to gift the loan or you want to loan to your close relative. This scheme is available. Of course, when we come to loan, I'll give you some further conditions are mentioned in the law, which should be followed while giving loan. But for giving donations, the limit is 2,50,000, and within that, no aggregate. Now, suppose somebody is traveling, also somebody is sending money to his children, also somebody is sending money to his relatives, also. All this together during the year should not exceed 2,50,000. Now, what are capital account transactions? You want to open a bank account abroad, you want to buy a property abroad, you want to invest in listed or non-listed shares abroad, you want, as an individual, you want to open a company abroad, or you want to enter into a joint venture where there is an investor abroad and you want to invest the money in a company and start a venture. All these are capital account transactions, as we know. Now, coming to this limit, there is another important point which I would like to make out, is that can an individual utilize this 2,50,000, and in addition to this 2,50,000, can he borrow outside to make an investment? For example, are part of that AOP. Now, question is whether this is permitted. In my opinion, this amounts to borrowing outside India, and an individual is not an eligible person under these rules and scheme to borrow and make investment outside India. So we need to be very cautious while advising our clients, and at least I will not advise people to go in for such commitments. Now, another important issue is whether the limit of 2,50,000 for each individual can be clubbed together. Yes, it has been specified that this limit can be clubbed together, but in case the remittance is going out on capital account transaction, then the clubbing is possible only if the names of all the investors are stated in the investment product. If it is a property, it should be a joint property. If it is a bank account, it should be a joint bank account. If these are shares, they should be held in joint name. So it is not that the father utilizes the limit of the entire family and makes the entire investment in his name. One is to be very careful on this. Now, what is the procedure? Procedure is not very tedious. You need to first identify a bank where you are KYC compliant. Ask the bank that you want to send these remittances. They have a prescribed form, Form A2, come LRS scheme form. They need your PAN number, and they will carry out a prima facie due diligence of the sources which you are availing. Thereafter, they'll send the remittance. In some cases, they may ask you to submit Form 15CB or Form 15CA, but again, banks sometimes play overcautious in asking such documents. When I'm sending money for myself, it is self to self, then where is the question of any income involved, and where is the question of Form 15CB? Unless I am sending the money to a third party for, say, anything which may definitely involve some portion of income. Now, once I have made the investment outside, do I need to bring back its income? No. Government has given that leverage that whatever you earn on such investments, you can retain the amount outside, you can play with it for permissible transactions. You can switch over from investments to investments which are again permissible. You cannot do anything which otherwise is not permissible, for which foreign exchange is not available. So be sure. So you need not, for example, if you have bought a property outside and you are earning rental income, you need not bring rental income every year. So that leverage is available. Now what I need to do with unspent amount? Suppose I was to travel. I took say $50,000 for my travel. I go abroad, spend $40,000, come back. What to do with the $10,000? Am I supposed to surrender it to the bank? Yes, there is a time limit for this. There are two things. One, that you can still avail this balance foreign currency for any other permitted transaction. You would have specified to the bank that you wanted to tour abroad, but now out of that 50,000 you have spent only 40,000 on tour expenses. Balance 10,000 you want to send as a gift to your son or for his maintenance. You can utilize this. There is no problem that you took initially the amount for your tours and travels. Similarly, there is a limit of 2,000 US dollars which you can keep as cash with you. Now, in case you are not able to spend the amount within 180 days, then you need to surrender it to the authorized dealer from whom you got that foreign currency. Now, besides foreign currency or traveler's checks, there are other modes which are generally now vastly used are international credit cards, international debit cards, and travel cards. Travel cards are now very famous because they are very convenient to use, and their exposure is also limited because whatever currency you have put in that travel card, your exposure is limited to that amount, whereas in credit card your limit is exposed, and we have seen various frauds under card schemes. So these three cards can be used outside. Of course, the travel card, it has its own limit. You may have put $1,00,000 or $50,000, so you cannot go beyond that, and bank will not put more than 2,50,000 depending on your availability after spending other heads of current account transactions. Now, international credit card, when you are traveling abroad, can be used there for your current account expenses, and that will not be counted in your 2,50,000 limit. There is no limit attached to international credit card used when you are traveling abroad on your current account transactions. It is not that you go outside, use international credit card and make a capital account transaction there and buy shares and you say that it is beyond $2,50,000. No, it is not. If you are staying in a luxurious hotel where your bill is more than $2,50,000 and you are using your card, international credit card, go ahead, use it, but not for capital account transactions. International debit cards have their own limit. They come within that $2,50,000. You cannot buy foreign exchange more than that. Travel card, as I told you, they have their own limit. Now, can I loan to my NRI relatives? There is, yes, within that $2,50,000, yes, you can, but some conditions have been attached. Now, it should be, first of all, interest free, with a minimum maturity of 1 year. Now, it should not be utilized by the borrower for prohibited purposes. Loan cannot be remitted abroad. It is to be credited to the non-resident's NRO account. And similarly, when it's time to refund the loan, it can come either through remittance abroad or from NRO account. Now, lastly, I would like to caution everybody that in this world of electronic this thing, when everything is virtual and when most of us are sitting home, we are receiving mails invariably of different nature. Somebody would say Google has selected you for a prize. Somebody says Facebook, you have been selected for $1 lakh prize. Or that somebody died in Germany and he has asked us to pass on this amount to a person in India for so and so purposes and so and so purposes, and we have, after seeing your profile, we have identified you for such purpose. But for this, you need to do the following: send a processing charges of $500, send your KYC, send your bank details, blah blah blah. Please do not fall into trap of all this. RBI has time to time cautioned everybody that when you see that $10 lakh and against that $500, it's worth taking a risk. Even if it doesn't come, I will bear it. Now you will bear it, but RBI will not bear it. RBI will be after you for violation of the basic rule. Now friends, this was on current account transactions. Whatever little knowledge I have of the subject, I have shared with you. In case you have any clarifications on this, I would welcome, or any difference of opinion also I'll welcome. And you can contact me at through WhatsApp. You can send your queries at 98101 40664. I'll repeat, 98101 40664. Thank you very much. I'll make out another presentation where I would intend to cover investment by individuals in companies abroad and buying of immovable property abroad and some related matters. Thank you very much.